Well, hello, and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken. I'm Old Who.
There you are, Joe. It's the Master's permanent residence.
And I'm Victoria Wheeler. I'm New Who.
Let's hope he's still there.
We are doing something special today. We are actually in the same frickin' room at Vic's house for the first time in
2.5, 3 years.
3 years, yeah. A long, long time. Where we came up to visit finally post-COVID, so we decided we would record together, and we're going to discuss the Sea Devils.
Which we actually got to watch together.
Parts of it, yes. And we both have very differing opinions of it, so we're going to get started. Let's jump to the synopsis, and we'll be right back. The Sea Devils, Serial LLL. Writer, Malcolm Hulk. Director, Michael Bryant. Script editor, Terrence Dix. Producer, Barry Letts. Originally aired February 26, 1972 to April 1st, 1972. The Doctor and Joe visit the Master, held in captivity on a small island. The governor, Colonel Trenchard, tells them that ships have been mysteriously disappearing. They investigate, and the Doctor is attacked by an underwater Silurian, a man-like lizard called a Sea Devil. The Doctor discovers that the Master, assisted by a misguided Trenchard, is stealing electrical equipment from a naval base to build a machine that will control the Sea Devils and then enable him to conquer the world. The Doctor enters the Sea Devils base and tries to encourage peace, but his efforts are frustrated by a depth charge attack ordered by a ruthless politician, Walker. The Doctor persuades Walker to allow him a final attempt negotiating peace, but in the meantime, the Sea Devils capture the naval base. The evil Master then forces the Doctor to help finish his machine, which will revive Sea Devil colonies all over the world. The Sea Devils want to kill the Master, now useless to them, but the Doctor sabotages the machine and escapes with the Master. The Sea Devils are blown up. All right, that was a lovely synopsis from the program guide by Jean-Marc L'Officier. Everybody, you can still get it. I think I need to seal mine and make it an historical document because I've had to clear tape the cover back on it. So it'll go to a museum. And with my old eyes, I should get the new version because it's a bigger book. So I'm going to let Vic go first. What did you think of this one?
Well, my initial take, this is my second time watching it, as it is with a lot of Old Who. And my initial take the first time I watched it is, oh, I recognize this, right? Like, this is 70s action, you know, and it's very much a piece of that, right? That there's a groovy chick, there's mustachioed villains, right? Like it's classic 70s action, and I have a soft spot for that. But I've found increasingly that the 21st century version of me is less a fan of the Third Doctor era, and it's. And we've had good feedback from listeners of the show who say, listen, this is who these guys were, right? Yeah. And they're absolutely, I agree. These are the dads of my neighborhood growing up. Were the John Pertwees of the world. I don't know that any of them were OSS, like he was, but special.
And does it take on a different take to you because you watched it the first time before you knew he was OSS?
No, because he was being that, right? He was being that action hero, whether or not he had done it in real life.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm the same way because we've both known soldiers and stuff because of where we grew up and stuff like that. That John Pertwee, we'll never. I don't think any of this is the OSS version of him, the wartime him. This is him as an actor and a performer, and this is the kind of action hero that he wasn't allowed to play. Right. He would never have been considered for.
Right.
So I think he leans into that, and that's why he is the action. He is the first action doctor, and the only real action doctor until we get to Tenet.
10, yeah.
Yeah, so it is, but yeah.
And Tenet's my favorite, right? Like
Yeah.
Tenet is the
But
one
they're-
that
but
I
they're
just
different.
relate
This is
to
a
the most.
This is an early 1970s. I get what you're saying. This is a 1970s version
But
of that.
it's not just me, right?
Oh, no,
because
it's not.
About Time actually says he's less of a get towards Joe in this,
And that's
than
praising.
right?
And they're
than
praising
in
it
other
when it's
ones.
less than a...
So it's not just me, and while I grew up around, the parents of friends of mine who were like that, and I adored many of them, right? I adored many people of that same generation. They were, my dad's a little bit younger than that, but that greatest
Would be my
generation,
dad- would be my
your
dad,
dad's
yeah.
generation, but that greatest generation, some of those guys were heroes and quiet about it, and lovely human beings who had the very same attitude towards women that John Pertwee is displaying in his portrayal.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there is a 21st century version of me that that has now doesn't enjoy that anymore. I grew up enjoying James Bond movies and everything else, like everybody else. And there's just a 21st century version of me who's raising a girl, who just doesn't enjoy it as much as I used to, who sees the flaws that I never used to see, and I wouldn't have seen Joe being talked down to if I watched this on airing. And I don't think I even saw it when I watched this the first time 5-10 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
I don't even think I'd seen it. I would see it. My eyes have been opened, and there's all sorts of materials and criticism out there now, like the Bechdel test and other things that make me aware of how media portrayals of women and their relationships with their superiors, right, were portrayed. And, he forbids her to eat.
Yeah, I had never caught that, and I was reading About Time while I was watching it at home, and I went, he snakes the sandwich from her. What a twat, man! I get exactly what you're saying. I really, when watching Pertwee, do when I watch Bond. I just did a big Bond rewatch, and I found some of it very cringy.
Yeah.
Very cringy. And I have my attitude toward Bond is Bond, as in the books, is an abhorrent human being. Mm-hmm. He is not meant to be. The film glamorized him. He's not even supposed to be handsome.
Right.
He's written in the book.
Right. No.
My brother Hugh said the best description is Hoagie Carmichael. And if you've ever seen Hoagie Carmichael, he looks like an old pharmacist or somebody. He's a very average.
He actually looks a great deal like the author.
Oh, okay. Modeled
Ian
him after
Fleming.
himself. Yeah. Who's not...
It wasn't dashing.
No,
he was... Ian Fleming exists, I think, in terms of look, somewhere in between Hoagie Carmichael and Noel Coward.
Yeah. Just an average looking...
A pretty average guy.
Because Bond would have had to blend in.
Mm-hmm.
As a spy, as a real spy.
Yeah.
And then we romanticize him. But I grew up on those movies, and I like the Connery ones. I like some of the... I like about 2 out of the more ones. Mm-hmm. But he's a very different. And then the others were much more... As we went after more, they got more and more like the Bond in the... Less the 70s action hero and more the desperate, not very nice person who kills for a living. Mm-hmm. But this is... Pertwee wanted to be that action hero, and the first season, season 7 is very much British science fiction, action man, and you have Liz in there, so she's more a partner.
Yeah,
more a partner, and it is season 7 is one of my favorite seasons, and definitely my favorite Pertwee season because of the content, not necessarily John Pertwee. That It was a little more. It was a little more traditional science fiction. It was a little more creepy. It was a little more adultish, family, and they really changed with season 8 when they kind of made it a little lighter and let him be a little more flamboyant, even more flamboyant, and brought Joe in. And this one, I've always just kind of liked it is, and I saw this as an omnibus for the first 20 years I saw this one. It makes a good action movie. I think it's one of the more tightly written Pertwee 6-parters and Pertwee stories. As a story, I like this one a great deal.
That's damning with faint praise, the tightly written 6-parter.
Yeah. But, I've discovered, but there's some 6-parters I like. We've done a couple recently that I like the long ones. There are long ones I like. I tend to, they're hard to watch because we're not watching it the way it's meant to be watched. It's meant to be you watch an episode of movie.
Absolutely.
But I think this is okay.
And that is absolutely shown in the 2 different helicopters. Right? They show you a helicopter, they cut away from it, they show you, and they cut back to it, and it's a different color.
Yeah.
Right? But, so they didn't expect close watching.
And it was never going to be repeated.
Exactly.
It was never going to be repeated. But I get what you're saying. I really get back to what you were saying. I agree. It doesn't, does it pass any of the tests we have now? He is dismissive of Joe. Less in this one. There are other stories where he's much more dismissive of him.
He's reliant on Joe in this one in really good ways.
And she's good. And this is a Joe story I like. Yeah. I really do. There are moments where, but it was this thing. And does it come from their own relationship? Because Pertwee adored Katie Manning. Loved her and respected her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And him. Yeah.
And it was paternal. And this was a very tight group that they loved one another. He does not disrespect her as an actress.
Never.
No, he doesn't. He treats her.
This is the way the character's written.
But I think some of it is Pertwee. He is paternalistic because he was born in 1918.
Yeah.
That is the way an action hero is written. And you have the most liberal producer this show has probably ever had.
Right.
I mean, even to today.
Mm-hmm.
I think Russell Davies isn't as liberal as Barry Letts. Russell Davies he can be a bit terse, but he's a writer.
Yep.
He is purely a writer. Russell Davies is closer to John Nathan Turner because he's a showman, too. He understands I have to go out and be a showman. But
Letts is a storyteller.
Letts is is purely a storyteller,
and
he's a director and a writer. He's a man of all. Davies doesn't direct, doesn't produce. He produces and he writes. That's all he does. But Letts acted, produced, directed. He did all of it. He understood it. But he was also a Buddhist, and was putting. Sorry, folks, he was putting social commentary in even these stories. This is not one of them.
Even
the
these
next
stories.
one we're going to do, The Mutants, is pure social commentary.
No, this one is social commentary. This is them coming back, and I mean the Sea Devil says, our history tells us that they were going to ruin the world, and Pertwee says not yet. And I'm like, like, we're pretty close, right? Like it's it's in a timeline of evolutionary Earth history. Humans show up and ruin the world, right?
We've been here 1/100th the length of the time the dinosaurs had, and we have had more impact on this planet than they did because all they did was eat, reproduce, and poop.
Yeah, and we found their poop and have used it to ruin the atmosphere. No, I know this is another one that, depending on when you watch it,
takes on a different.
Takes on a different context because they talk about a climactic catastrophe, and scientists now, unless they work for the government. Now don't call it climate change, they call it climate catastrophe because we are in a catastrophic zone.
By the neutral scientists are saying we're ahead of the curve. We would thought it was going to happen here. It could happen well before then.
Well
because
before then,
we're
right.
well before then. Folks, we have the doomsday clock. I think it's run by American scientists. It used to be measure nuclear. It was really focused on us blowing ourselves up. And they moved it closer to midnight. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with our weapons or war. It has everything to do with what we're doing to the planet.
Yeah.
So this is...
Dangerous technologies.
Yeah. Is that what they're calling it now? Dangerous technologies? Mm-hmm. All right.
So it's 90 seconds to midnight now. So...
we grew up during the Cold War, and it was...
100 seconds to midnight.
Was it 100? Okay.
I don't know.
No, I thought it was 2 minutes to midnight. So it
Yeah.
had been 120 seconds. But, that's...
Yeah. But it's what Letts is talking about.
Yeah, it is.
Letts is a climate activist.
He knew it in the 1970s.
I know. Well, so did Prince Charles, and he was mocked. Now King Charles, and he was mocked for. Not that I'm a fan of his, but I'm just saying, people in the UK have been talking about climate change. People all over the world have been talking about climate change for a long time, and that actually leads us to another issue, which is one of the most dramatic ways of showing and telling about a human's impact on Earth comes from examining the oceans.
Yes.
And
our trash is flooding it.
Well, but that was during the time that this was filmed and aired. We had, it felt like, constant Jacques Cousteau television specials being made. We completely grew up on those being made and aired, and they were they coincided with the invention of color television, because I gotta tell you, watching Under the Sea stuff in black and white is horrible.
It was, yeah. I remember. We didn't get, I'll be honest, like you guys folks, we didn't get our first color TV in my family till 1973.
Okay, so we got ours in 1969 because we needed a UHF turn-on. So our television had one knob and could get 13 channels. And when we moved from Southwest Virginia, where there were only 2 stations anyway, when we moved, and we moved into the Washington, D.C. area, a brand new show came on the air that was aimed at children.
Sesame Street.
And it was called Sesame Street.
And that's why we got it, because we moved to Alexandria.
And my mom went out and bought, but had to get one that had the UHF.
Yeah. So you could get up to 63.
63.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how I got to watch Doctor Who, because I could get Baltimore channels.
Yep.
And we got PBS. But it's...
So this is actually playing off all of those Jacques Cousteau TV shows, right? Mm-hmm. Showing things that come out of the ocean, showing things that are... There was an obsession at that point with color television and with, as noted by the Master's request for a second color television, which is...
And he's watching
the height of
he's calling what, the knackers?
The clangers.
The clangers. And there's an homage to that scene in the Dobby Doctor story where my least favorite master, John Sims, is watching TV.
Yeah. But there's a great history that ties all of these ideas together, that Cousteau was showing us the impact that environmental change was having on the oceans, that this was intentional by Letts to both catch on to this new fad of oceanic underwater photography, and focusing in and around the oceans and stuff like that. And then, but also on climate change. Yeah.
Well, let's circle back to what you were saying, because you have a very good point, and I don't 100% agree with you, but I get your interpretation.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading about time, I did kind of go, I really get tired, and I'm a bigger Jo fan than you are, because I like Jo's, when she is given times to be Jo, she takes action, and she is a very caring, loving person, and I like that. But
listen, I think they sell her short in this.
Yeah, no, and this is one where she gets to do more. And
she gets to do more, but she's at one point trying to communicate with the Doctor through a window. I mean, she's out he's been captured. She's free. So she's gathering information and climbing up on walls to get it to him, right? She's doing all the adventure hero stuff. And she gets up there and she pantomimes, and it's a great moment because it's like a twirly mustache for the for the
and
master.
the doctor goes, "Oh, the master!"
And so it makes it's a great scene.
Yeah.
It's a great scene between the two of them and two actors playing off of each other, and she's doing a great pantomime, right? But what I thought in the moment is Joe knows Morse code. And you can get much more effective, perfect information to the doctor by tapping using Morse code.
Well, it's also a lazy TV thing.
It's lazy
in their
TV.
defense, it is because this scene, we don't have to have the dialogue where he deciphers the Morse code. We'll do a quick pantomime and move on.
Right.
Show, don't tell. But you and me are more I don't mind tell and then show.
Right.
You know, I'm one of those people in comic books that I miss thought balloons because people go, well, you're telling me. It's like, no, you're telling me what the person's thinking. That gives me context and characterization.
Yeah.
See, her tapping out in Morse code and showing she was smart,
Right.
you and me would have written in because it would have made Joe look better in a better light. Yeah. My problems with poor Katie Manning is, well, Vic, we were watching the scene where she spots the master from 100 feet away, 2 stories up, through a piece of really crappy glass, and recognizes, and we both know that poor Katie Manning can't see her own hand in front of her face, that made us laugh.
Yeah.
But she's climbing in 6-inch heels. She's running through the sand.
She's running a hovercraft at one point.
Oh, yeah. And she's
the actor, Katie Manning, is running a hovercraft. And those are the times that, apparently Pertwee made himself scarce. You've given her the keys to I'm leaving. Right?
No, but she, it just, there's that thing that she's got to be dressed a certain way. It makes sense for the doctor to be dressed flamboyantly, but... And they were only going to see the master. I get it. But, she has to run in high heels. She has to do this. This poor thing. At least she's not in a damn miniskirt.
She's in pants,
because it's cold.
Well,
But
but that type of pantsuit would have been. It was the
very
type of
progressive for that time, wasn't it?
Well, it was very progressive. My grandmother would find outfits like that for me that I could wear to church. So that I had something that was nice and dressy, but wasn't a dress and didn't make me feel uncomfortable. And God bless my grandmother for doing that, and because it made me much more confident and less sort of broken than I would have been otherwise. Mm-hmm. But those were highly progressive things.
Yeah.
For a woman to wear.
Well, she's wearing. I mean, they're because this show is it's really at its peak of popularity here, and with Tom Baker. I mean, there is this 10-year period where the show is at its, it was about to be canceled, and Letts and Dix and Pertwee save it, save it with the change and the forced change. I mean, they all kind of go, well, this is what. Well, not Pertwee. He didn't care. I don't think I've ever seen him complain that Stuck on Earth was bad.
Yeah.
He didn't really care what the adventure was. Just make me look good, and let's make a good product. Let's do the best we can. I think that's why he leaves. Eventually leaves is because it's not going to be the same without these people. But Letts and Dix were like, well, our hands are tied because we were mandated on Earth. But it allowed them to do these kind of stories, but it also made it very action oriented. And I think this one, I have to watch this one with the when was it made glasses on a little bit. And I don't mind doing it.
Yeah, right.
I don't mind doing it as much on this one because it is such a fun adventure romp and it is well constructed. The guests, we'll go on to this, but we want to talk about the guest cast because we both but it doesn't have the flaws that some 70s Doctor Who has. But it does have this thing is that, yes, it is correct that Joe is not, I find myself liking the third Doctor less and less.
Right.
As a whole. Because
Because
he's just I can't see myself wanting to hang out with him. He's not one. I don't ever want to be the Doctor. And when we talk representation, for me, I'm a huge thing about representation, and and that's having, most of my friends are women. I have male friends, but most of my friends are women. I have a goddaughter. I have nieces. I have all my sisters are strong-willed. My mother had an opinion, But it's just, okay, it's different. And I read and I cover comics from the past, and it's culture change. And I, as someone who has done theater and stuff like that and have an artistic leaning, you have to judge stuff on when it is created.
Sure.
You cannot,
I mean...
But you also have to go, this is the flaw of the time. And is this so bad that it takes away the potency of the story?
Right.
This one, it's a distraction.
That's where I am with Bond.
Yes,
right?
it
That's
is starting.
Where I am with Bond. It's not just a distraction. It is something that I don't want to, where its merits don't outweigh the damage that it can do.
Yeah.
And that's where I am with Bond, which is sad for me because I was a huge James Bond fan, and I just can't share. My daughter would not relate to it in any way, and I think that's a good thing.
I think you and me could sit down, have a beer, watch it, and we would laugh at certain stuff. We would go, "This is a great scene. It's beautifully shot."
But
we would
like
see
the
that,
last time
but it's
I
not
watched-
something I'm going to share it.
Well, the last time I watched Goldfinger, for example, he's really shitty to the woman who winds up painted in gold.
He leaves it. He dismisses her, and she gets killed, and then it's guilt.
And then it's guilt.
It's guilt. I mean, and that's the point of that character.
Maybe,
but when a woman is a plot device, purely a plot device,
right? Nothing she says or does contributes to the moving forward
until
of the action.
his actions causes her death.
Only her death, and it's not even.
She doesn't
do anything to contribute to her death.
It's all hit. Yeah, and I get you. And that used to be my favorite Bond movie. But also one of my favorites also would be where's the one where he does they make him Japanese and look. It's a great plot, but it's like even as a kid, I went, oh, okay, it's just that's the way it is. But I watched it on a 52-inch high def screen and went, oh god, what's that thing? Someone in the room going. Yeah, it's just bad. Yeah, I get it. But I watched them, and I had to kind of look at them, and I actually was thinking, Morris Bond's a little less of a dick.
He is.
He's the gentleman Bond. He's a very unique Bond.
He is.
He's a gentleman. He's an English gentleman.
Yeah.
Where Bond's not English.
Well, and it's a class thing as well.
Yeah, he's more upper English
he
class.
He is, and that's right. They say is the difference between rugby and football, right? Is that football is a gentleman's game played by ruffians. And rugby is a ruffian's game that's played by gentlemen, and that's why they have collars on their shirts.
Oh my god!
And that's so it's, but in the very highly class focused Great Britain, the Connery is not and ever going to be someone who doesn't get his hands dirty.
Yeah.
And Moore is.
Yeah.
And so but enough Bond. This is and the reason we keep talking about it is that this is the Doctor trying to be James Bond.
Yes.
And what you're saying is that, I said to you earlier that this is the most arrogant Doctor.
He is, because it's not just, there's arrogance in modern Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
Davies writes, come on, 10, 11, 12.
12.
Oh my God. They're very arrogant. They scream, they yell out their CV.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And it can be off-putting. I find that I've not watched a lot of modern Who, other than Jodie, since the pandemic started. Unless it was coming out new, I haven't really wanted to go revisit modern Who, because I haven't been in the mood, because there's a lot of showmanship, there's a lot of flash, there's a lot of this, and not that I don't like it, it's just I don't have the urge to see it. Because there's that arrogance, and that's why I found Jodie very
Yeah.
refreshing because she wasn't as arrogant.
Yeah.
And this is, and I think that's why it puts me off on this one. I mean, Tom Baker's Doctor is arrogant, but there's a zaniness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
He's
a little
unhinged.
He's he's unhinged. That's fair enough, and I think that's kind of why we like I like Matt Smith, because there's there's just something a little off about him.
Well,
but
I like 12 because I think there's a neuroatypicalness.
oh
to
yes,
him.
yes, because season 1 is him coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
Seasons 2 is him and Clara adapting to it. This is my care. She cares, so I don't have to.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And then,
but he's becoming aware of it and coming to terms with it, but still saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
You know?
And we've said this over and over again that there's a plan for Moffat 1, 2, 3 seasons
Yes.
for Capaldi, and I think that this one is. I enjoyed Pertwee once. I'm really looking forward to covering the mutants because the last time. But there's a taint to it, and I don't mean that bad way. It just it's a little.
If you watch it as a nostalgia piece,
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And in fact, About Time says almost that exact thing, because they talk about what's wrong with it and say, listen, if you're watching this as an 8-year-old,
Yeah.
you know,
You're not gonna
then
catch
you
that.
don't catch and don't care about the things that are wrong with it. And that's the point here, right? That they say, watched out of context and by anyone not besotted with this era, it's difficult to see why anyone could have any affection for it. Okay, that's not us. That's people who've made their living producing a compendium of everything about this show that they love.
And this is the biggest book because all of Pertwee's is in one volume. It's a brick.
But it says if you like all the regulars are doing exactly what viewers want to see, but the rest of the Enterprise is just there as pretext. If you're not watching this as an 8-year-old in 1972 on Saturdays, just like every Saturday, all the flaws and missed opportunities stand out a mile.
Yeah.
But if you watch it with a child's heart and mind,
It's just a simple,
and you watch it as it was intended, it's a joy.
It is. It's an action movie. It's a movie serial. It's got the mustached villain.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the prison escapes. It's got the hovercraft. It's got the. I mean, I love what they say about watching it originally when you're a kid and seeing the Sea Devils come up. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But if you're watching it now,
Right.
it's 6 guys in canvas coveralls and a mesh shirt. I'm gonna make a mesh shirt joke in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And with paper mache heads on, fish heads on. I do think it's one of the greatest shots in Old Who. I love this. I love the story as an action story.
It stays in your mind.
It is. This is one of my favorite Pertwees to rewatch, and I would rewatch it tomorrow because it's the one I sit down and it's a bubblegum or a popcorn movie. I'm going to watch it as purely that. I don't get overexcited about Pertwee ones. There are a few that I find Spearhead from Space I could watch 1,000 times because it's a great science fiction
Terror
story.
of the Autons.
Yeah. They're great. There are certain great ones. I'm a big fan of. We'll find out when we get back around and we do the mutants. I really, as political commentary and showing it out of proportion. Because it's so over the frickin' top. I love it now. But there's certain ones that I enjoy. But do I want to go back and do a Pertwee rewatch? No, I'll watch the ones I like. I do think...
You're catching up when they put out these new Blu-rays.
Yeah. And that's neat because those things are... Me and Jeff have talked about it. But they are documenting the history. They are historical documents. Chris Chapman, Toby Haddock, Matthew Sweet... oh my God, the guy that played the train conductor, Frank Skinner. Mm-hmm. Frank Skinner, fans all. The Frank Skinner documentary where he goes to Terrence Dix's house and they let him into the locked study where Terrence Dick wrote all his books. He's like a little child.
I bet.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. But they're documenting. So, and the next one to come out in this country is season 2. And I'm really looking forward to that. That's coming out in 4 weeks. I'm very excited. No, 4 weeks? No, in 6 weeks. I'm very excited about it. And then the one after that they just announced is this season. So it'll be fun.
But now they were during the filming of this story, they were also documenting for the first time the history and the making of Doctor Who in the book that Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke who wrote this story.
And Mountain Hope is probably his. I love his Who. He writes a good story.
Yeah,
some are better than others, but his basic, the heart and the meat of his stories is very good. Always, he understands action, and he understands plot. I think because this one is a 6-parter. I don't think really it's not as much fluff.
No, the making of Doctor Who that I own, I picked up used, and it is it's the 1976 edition, so it has Tom Baker on the cover, and all of the set shots and photographs are from the Tom Baker, Elizabeth Sladen era. And so, is that William
Hartnell in that picture? Yeah. That's the one. They went to his garden. It's the folks. She showed me the picture where it's Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, and William Hartnell standing together. That publicity shot was shot. If I remember the story right, was shot in his garden. They came and took the shot because they filmed. They went to him to film his scenes because he was so sick. And I got
to tell you what, the smile on his face.
He's happy as can be because the other two gentlemen are probably showing deference to him because they are gentlemen and they understand.
And they understood
that and he's ill and
right. But they understand that the success of their lives, the greatest success of their lives,
are tied to him.
Are because of him.
Yeah.
Not just tied to, but because of him. I guess Troughton would have thought that way about his Who.
Yeah, I think he would have. I
don't know. He felt, I think, like more of a stage actor.
That's the original cover. I'm showing Vic the original John Pertwee
cover. So the
cover.
1972.
And it's got a really 1970s font on it, don't it?
It does. And it's got a sea devil on it.
Yes. So
I like the look of this. Now you'll say that you say it is a memorable moment when that first sea devil even comes up out of the ocean. And I will tell you though that my wife walked past as I was watching it.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay. The big turtle.
Yeah,
right? Like so, okay.
Well, I don't know if you guys have this turtle head. It has a different connotation in America.
Right.
I don't know if that slang term is the same. Google it, folks, because I'm not going to say it on the show.
Well, it's what I did read Prince Harry's autobiography, whatever, the thing called Spare. And,
God.
And it's not, I wanted him to get the money because I like burning things down better than anything else in the world. I'm a revolutionary at heart, and so I wanted to see the match get lit and tossed onto the fire, and or the gas can or whatever it is that he's doing, because that's fun for me. It's also not my country, so y'all do you. But he says it's. Roundheads versus Cavaliers.
Okay.
Is how they talk about it in what we would call boarding school.
Okay.
So Roundheads versus Cavaliers. They have their own Civil War metaphor for it. The cast.
I don't know the name. Vic's got the thing up on the computer, but I think this is one of the best guest casts you ever see because they're all good.
They're all good and they're all regulars.
They've all been in and out. Yeah. I forget the guy, the chubby guy. I hate to say chubby, but the more stocky guy in the orange. Me and Vic were drooling over their jumpers. We were both like, those are sweaters me and Vic would love to own.
Yeah, they're high quality jumpers.
Yeah. We get. I was very sad. I had to throw an L.L. Bean sweater away this year, but I'd had it for 30 years. So Vic has more LL Bean than me. I have LL Bean envy.
I go there every year.
Yeah.
But that's that apparently at some point when my mother-in-law was, apparently she asked how I dressed.
Okay.
And asked what store, was she Ann Taylor or Talbot's, and my, at the time, future wife said, LL Bean? So, yeah, I'm Bean all the way. But Patagonia...
I've turned into a corduroy and flannel wearer as I've gotten older because I'm always cold.
Yeah. That's what we're wearing. So, but yeah, this guest cast is great. There is apparently the guy who plays Trenchard.
Is that the Trenchard is the warden? Okay.
Is the warden, right? And that's the origin from the John Gielgud story where Gielgud mistook him for someone else and said, "At least I wasn't stuck with that bore, Clive Morton." We are, as my almost 15-year-old daughter would say, we are bitchy queen stands in this in this room.
Yeah, we are. I worked in a gay theater company. I've been trained by the masters. I was very upset when when Leslie Jordan died. I actually shed a tear.
Because you met him.
He was a sweet, weird, creepy, adorable little homo. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm going to use that word because it fit him. But he was, folks, if you know him, he was that guy on TV, but he had a big heart of gold. Yeah. He was a very sweet man. It was very sad. But, I can be a little queenie when it comes to doing it. But the guy that plays, I cannot remember his name, but he is...
Captain Hart?
Captain Hart? Well, he's been in a bunch and I can't remember. And I'm trying to the guy that plays the man they go to rescue on the tower out on the fort.
The one in the orange.
Yeah. He is. I remember him from another Doctor Who, but they all were in him. Mm-hmm. My favorite is the permanent undersecretary guy.
Yeah.
The permanent private secretary. Oh my God.
Parliamentary. It's parliamentary.
Because he says it like 8 times the first time he walks in the room.
And he corrects people.
And he's very that kind of... And I have to do this. That's the skill I have at work. It's where you have to walk into a room and be the positive, smiling person in charge. And I do it. It's exhausting. You know, my agents go, "Why are you shutting the door?" It's like, because I'm going to be cranky. So I'm going to shut my door. I don't have enough polish to shine on that turd that's just been laid in my office. So I'm going to go back in here and just clean it up.
Yeah. The parliamentary secretary comes in episode 2 or 3.
No. It's later. It's like 3 or 4. Because he's only in half the story, I think. Because they've already sent the submarine out. Mm. Because that Captain Hart's not around because they've said the submarines. It's in the same episode the submarine gets captured.
Okay, so Clark is the guy on the orange sweater, and Walker is the person. Walker comes in episode 5, so I was clearly not paying attention. So
because every time the credits roll, we would stop watching and chat, and then
Clark is Declan Mulholland, who was also in The Androids of Tara. There's so many.
It's really a who's who of
people who worked with Michael Bryant and Malcolm.
You know what? We were watching and went, and my about time is in a bag up in the guest room because I read it on the way down up to visit, and I didn't look at any of the credits, and I was about to turn to Vic and ask, "Is this a Michael Bryant one?" And then the credits rolled, and I went, "Yes," because it's an incredibly well crafted story, and he knows how to shoot action because there's a lot of close-ups and the close-up and up on people.
Martin Body, who played the parliamentary private secretary, was in a couple Carry On movies,
Okay.
as well as what I consider to be Orson Welles' best movie,
Is he in
The
Chimes of
Third
Min-
Man.
Oh, the third? He's in The Third Man. Okay.
Now, I don't think Chimes of Midnight is his best. I like what he's doing there.
It's easier to watch at any time. Sometimes his stuff's hard to. I find Wells' stuff a little rough. Third Man really kind of freaks me out. I haven't watched it in about. My government teacher in high school hated that movie and he would mention it constantly because it must have done something to him that made him just uncomfortable.
It's very avant-garde.
It is very avant-garde, and I don't think he liked it because I think he was.
But he's also in Ivanhoe and A Man for All Seasons. And The Naked Civil Servant. I mean,
Wow, that's a great TV.
It
Folks,
is.
if you have not seen, is that the Ivanhoe with TV Ivanhoe by Camfield or
the Robert Walker one.
I love that one.
I know.
That one's a good one. Because we're going to talk about something else. Because
The
we're
52 movie.
52. It's a great movie, and Man for All Seasons is a masterful performance.
Robert Taylor.
Yeah, Robert Taylor. It's really good. That is a story that is really hard to tell.
Ivanhoe, yeah.
Yeah,
That's why it has a bit. It's one of the world's best-selling books of all time.
But it is.
But it's not. It doesn't translate well.
You don't want to know, but that one handles it. I think handles it a little better. And the Douglas Camfield television one
From 1982.
which is good because the issue with the Jewish characters, I feel watching it is that the people who are being prejudiced against them are bad. It's not.
So that's the Anthony Andrews one
Yeah, I think so.
from 1982.
Yeah, is it? No, Douglas Camfield directed. Was he alive in 1982?
Let's see. So the cast is full of really good people, and they play all of their parts perfectly.
Oh, I want to give a shout out to the Captain Hart's assistant, Jane Blythe, played by June Murphy. She's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Also been in a Who.
Oh, okay. I think she's really good because she could just be the secretary, but she has to tell her boss, like, I think there's a problem going on because they didn't bring back the car. And the minute the permanent private secretary comes in, she is just like, you jackass. And dreaming on her face. Especially when he orders her to get him breakfast, and she's just like...
James Mason plays the Isaac of York, the Jewish moneylender.
Oh, he does.
In the Douglas Camfield one.
Yeah.
It is 1982.
Yeah.
Sam Neill and Anthony Andrews. And...
It's a pretty well made... It's done like this. It's shot like this. It is a serialized... we would have seen it... It wouldn't have been Masterpiece Theater. That might have been produced by Barry Letts and Terrence Dix for Armchair Theater. Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they did a lot of like old books, adapted old books. But we got it over here on... I think I saw it on Arts and Entertainment. Huey made me watch it. He videotaped it. And I watched it and I loved it. Because Hugh's read the book. My brother Hugh would have read that book a dozen times.
A dozen times.
Yeah, a dozen times. So he's that guy. But it's a great cast.
Herman Rush was the Columbia Pictures television head. It was filmed at Pinewood Studios. And it was an opportunity for Julian Glover to play Richard I again, like he did in Doctor Who.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I forgot Julian. He's still with us. He's still with us. It's nice. I'm a big. There's a new Indiana Jones movie coming out and it looks really, really good. He's one of my favorite. He's I think in the Last Crusade. He's a wonderful villain. He's just a wonderful villain. And I do love that movie. But let's talk about the Sea Devils have only been back 2 more times. Once in Warriors of the Deep, which I will save my critique on that to when we have to watch that. It is not one of my favorites. I know Jeff likes it. I know a lot of people of his generation really like it. It has all the flaws of 80s Who. But then there is Legends of the Sea Devils. That was the next to last Jodie story. And we were discussing it kind of offhand and on last episode. And we talked about the pirate movies. Captain Blood, which I watched last week. I pulled it up on, it was on TMC. On HBO
That's
Max.
Flynn's best movie. I think it's his best portrayal. I think the better movie is Robin Hood, but it's because of everybody else. I think Captain Blood...
it's really there's some good acting in it, and there's not always good acting in those movies.
No. But I think he acts best in Captain Blood.
But it's very political. The slaves are all white, fighting for their freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were white slaves. There were, the English did send their people to be indentured servitude and
that's different than slavery.
Yeah, and to work themselves to they knowingly, you're sentenced to 10 years knowing that their life expectancy was 3. But it's a good movie.
But it was also punitive, and it wasn't based on the color of their skin.
Yeah, it was based on...
It was punishment.
It was punishment for... And in that portrayed is something as simple as being in the wrong room at the wrong time.
Right.
Yeah.
Or stealing a loaf of bread when you're a hungry man, right?
Yeah, instead of,
we can... That's ACAB, right? That's...
Yeah, that's... But that's a good pirate movie. And there are good pirate movies. And I like Legend of the Sea Devils because it's a fun science fiction kind of pirate movie with a sea devil in it.
I really thought it was good.
I did too. It was not supposed to be heavy hitting. It was supposed to be a good romp because what was coming next was big and spectacular.
Right.
And it was shot during, and I gotta give it, they shot it during the pandemic. Are there little flaws in some of the stuff? Why did they do this? But then they're swinging on ropes onto ships and you're going, where are they swinging from? But that's in any pirate movie.
It's absolutely a pirate movie. And it's, the Madame Chang is an incredible historical figure to come in contact, for the Doctor to come in contact with, right? Mm-hmm. A female doctor running into a female pirate, the greatest female pirate ever, is fantastic. And
I think that was what great about Jodie's there in some way. She met a lot. They made sure that she met a lot of famous women.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it made perfect sense. Rosa Parks, the spy in World War II,
Inuit Khan, right? Noor Inuit Khan.
Yeah. So but I enjoyed it. It was nice to see them come back. I thought with modern technology, the big turtle head worked a little better, and the mesh shirt, which I worked in a gay nightclub tending bar, and we had a guy in there called Mesh Shirt Guy. Every weekend, it was an after-hours club. He would come in. He was this mildly overweight white guy in a mesh shirt, and we used to say he looks like a bag of a netted bag of mashed potatoes with a head. And he got kicked out like every third weekend. But it was a very kind of creepy disco kind of outfit. So, but the Sea Devils work. I like this one. Overall I like it. I entertained, but I get it. Does the Pertwee era hold up as well as other eras? No. No,
I just become the 6-year-old me who would have been watching this or some other action special, or a Jacques Cousteau, or right? Like if I become the 1972 version of me, and you know what? I've said this before, that times that we hearken back to were not necessarily simpler. We remember them as simpler because we were simpler. If I was 6, the world was a very simple place, right? Because what really mattered was, is there a prize at the bottom of my cereal box, right? And it's not the world that I live in now, because I'm aware of everything that's going wrong. Right?
Yeah. Our parents are, when you're a child, your parents shield you from the outside world. They build up a force field as best they can.
I mean, you knew that the Vietnam War was going on because your dad had been twice, right?
My earliest memory of him is not real. Some of my earliest memories of him is him not being around and not being, he was a military man, and absent fathers, sometimes this meant he wasn't around the house a lot, even though he lived in the house.
I knew that the word Vietnam existed. Okay? I didn't know it was an active, ongoing war until well after it was over.
Yeah, I do.
Because I
know
was
them.
shielded from it. My parents didn't put the news on for that reason.
Yeah, but me, it was like your dad's gone to fight, and
Yeah.
Did I know he couldn't come? There was a chance he wouldn't come back. I just knew my pops was gone, wasn't there,
Right.
and he was someplace, and my mom was worried, a little worried. But my mom had 6 kids.
Yeah, that'd make you worried anyway.
Yeah, that would make you worried anyway, especially those 6 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and there's no. All right, folks. So next week we will be doing the Mask of Mandragora. I've never been able to pronounce it. It's a Sarah Jane story, and it's set in Renaissance Italy, and we get to find out how come everybody can. They finally decide to tell us how you can understand everybody, which you don't really need to do, but I think people were getting more sophisticated, and they were getting that question: how do you understand it? And someone had to make it up. Well, it's the TARDIS. But we're going to do that, and then after that is... I don't remember which Peter Davison is next, because I can't remember the last one we did. Because that was like 6 months ago.
Hold on. I'm going to grab the 5th Doctor. And did we do Terminus last time?
Yes, we did.
And so it's Enlightenment.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to watch it with the new special effects, because it's beautiful. It's fun. I like that one, because it is one of those...
That's the first one written and directed by a woman.
At the same time, yes, I think it is. There had been... Patty Russell was the first woman, and she directed during the first Doctor Who. Who is it? Fiona Cummings is the writer?
Yeah, and Barbara Clegg is the writer. Fiona Cummings
is the doctor. It's a wonderful one where they meet Eternals, and it's big and conceptual, and I like that kind of science fiction. I think Doctor Who does it better than most, because they had to. And
it's the woman from the Gunfighters Returns, right?
Yes, and she also she works in the department store with Matt Smith.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the one. She's the one he talks to. So. But we got some good ones coming up, so I'm excited. And we'll be viewing our last Sylvester McCoy. We'll do... I don't remember what the next Colin Baker Big Finish is, but it's a Colin Baker Big Finish with Evelyn, and we'll both be happy. Mm-hmm. All right, folks. I have something to recommend, because I want to recommend it to Vic, and I have meant to mention... I don't know if I told her about this. It is a gentleman I work with recommended it to me. It is... I listened to it on Spotify. It is audio drama. It is set in... It is Lovecraftian in concept, but it is called The Old Gods of Appalachia. It has intro and outro music from goth bluegrass bands. And it's... Vic, I really think you will love it. It is basically a serial. It is told by 1 or 2 people, one person being a narrator, and the other... a woman and man maybe playing the parts, and they've dug too deep into the ground. And it's alternate history, because from what happens, history changes because these demonic, evil, Lovecraftian creatures start to taint the people. And it's got a wonderful soundtrack. It is just hypnotic. I cannot recommend it enough. It started in 2019, and I have only gotten to the end of the first story. And I'm enjoying the hell of it.
Looks like there's almost 30 episodes.
Yes, it
More
is.
than.
And Ben, the guy I worked with,
50.
he paid $250 in the Kickstarter because they have an RPG based on this thing.
Nice.
And it's shipping. And I thought I would recommend it to Vic because I think it is something she would listen to while doing work in the yard and really get into it, and it's amazing. I cannot recommend it more highly.
While Ross's family were toiling in Irvine,
yours were
mine were in Appalachia.
Yeah, well, they dug a little. This one, I think you'll like it. It starts in 1917. and it's just haunting. I can't listen to a bunch in a row because you really gotta. I got Ken to listen to it, and he's already on season 2. I haven't gotten that part, and he goes, "I think I gotta go back and listen to the first one again because I don't want to think I missed anything."
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
It's creepy as hell.
That's cool.
Yeah. I thought you'd like that.
up my
God,
alley.
the music alone. The
book, I bet. The book I'm reading right now is a biography of Frederick Douglass, who I think everybody would know who he is.
He's known in the UK.
Well, because he traveled there extensively.
They have statues to him in Scotland or something like that.
He's a huge Scotland fan. I think that his belief system, his personal faith, was more aligned with Presbyterian Church. But
that would have made sense because they were more abolitionist.
Yeah, there's a breach in the church, as there is in the Scottish church, like once a generation, that winds up being supported by the American Southern Presbyterians, and he leads chants of "send back that money," because it's dirty money because it's coming from the Southern slaveholders, and so so it's Frederick Douglass, and his name was Frederick Bailey. It was his mother's name last name was Bailey, and so his siblings through his mother all carry, because matrilineal lineage carries the condition in slavery. It's one of the things that makes it so unusual. Our version of chattel slavery is that the condition follows the mother, where in no other legal status ever has fought in the...
You weren't born a slave in other versions of slavery, were you?
Not necessarily, but even if you were, it would have followed your father. This is the...
Very old biblical, kind of creepy bad on that one.
Well, every legal status in the Western European tradition followed the father.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It came down... Right? So this made them the equivalent of our cows and sheep, our livestock. It made them livestock.
Yes.
And that's what's wrong with it. But when he fled Maryland, he fled an area that's, 45 minutes from here, and got to Philadelphia, he changed his last name to Johnson, as fugitives were urged to change their name. When he arrived in Boston, the person in the Underground Railroad, sort of group there said, "I'd recommend that you change your name to something other than Johnson, because every black person in this area is named Johnson, so that's starting to stand out a little bit, that there's so many Johnsons and so many possible fugitives here." And he said to the man, "Tell me what name you would give me." And the man had just finished reading Walter Scott, and the chieftain is Douglas. And so he takes it and adds an S to make it stand out a little bit.
Make it less a surname. Make it a surname and not a given name.
Well, but he liked it. And when he got a chance to go to the UK, and then he borrowed the man's book because Douglas could read.
Yeah. Was he self-taught read?
No, he was actually taught by a woman in Baltimore in whose house he was enslaved. He had been...
Very illegal.
Very illegal. And then when her husband found out she was doing it, he forbade it, and it made Frederick want more. And he fought for it and claimed it for himself, and got kids on the street, and Irish kids on the street in Baltimore, to help him get better and lend him their textbooks and things like that. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning biography by David Blight. It's enormous, and because this man wrote 3 autobiographies and published a newspaper with editorial content and wrote letters and was famous in his day.
Incredibly famous. Probably the most famous African American.
Yeah. Worldwide.
Worldwide, and probably until Debs in the turn of the century.
Du Bois?
Yeah, boy, that's what I'm talking. Not you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Or Booker T. Washington.
And still probably more famous than all of them.
Oh, no.
Until maybe King.
Yeah.
and maybe until Dr. King, worldwide.
Yeah.
And so everybody kept letters from him. And so there are huge collections all over the world of his correspondence. And so this is an incredibly thorough biography, and is able to give week by week and month by month his life. And so the time period covering the lead up to the war and the transition of power from Buchanan to Lincoln, and the insecurity and the not knowing what was going to come, and hoping for war because war is what they deserved.
Yeah.
But not wanting war because pacifism, right? Mm-hmm. But they deserve death. And like his getting to know John Brown and his supporting of John Brown until John Brown decided to attack the federal government, and Douglas was like, even I'm not that crazy, right? Like, it's a great book.
I'm interested because I have an Audible subscription, but basically I have it so I get a free book every. I'm really interested in hearing that book. Well, folks, this is probably one of our bigger sidetrack ones, but I don't care
because we're sitting in the same
room and we're having a good conversation. So, folks, as always, we look forward to seeing you next time, and we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or space.